Good morning, and thank you for being here today. Over the past several years, Canadians have experienced the pandemic in very different ways. Many families lost loved ones to COVID-19. Many frontline healthcare workers and first responders also carried an enormous burden throughout the pandemic. They showed up every day, often under incredibly difficult circumstances, to care for Canadians and keep our communities safe. I want to take a moment to recognize them and thank them for their service, for their sacrifice, and for the work they continue to do every single day. Over the past several months, we've been asking Canadians who experienced serious adverse events following COVID-19 vaccination to come forward and share their stories. The response has been overwhelming. More than 1,000 people have now applied online asking for the opportunity to have their voices heard. Think about that for one moment. More than 1,000 Canadians have stepped forward, many after years of struggling with their health, struggling to get answers, and struggling to navigate a system they believe was supposed to help them. Unfortunately, we simply cannot hear from everyone during these hearings. In September, we expect to hear directly from approximately 50 vaccine-injured Canadians. But I want to make something very clear. The 50 people who testify are not the only stories that matter. They represent more than the 1,000 people that have contacted us and the many, many more Canadians across the country who have never come forward. These are not statistics. They are mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, friends and neighbors. They are MPs, MP staff, and senators. They are in the media. They are doctors. They are literally in every walk of life. We're also going to hear from Crystal, the sister of Scott Gorey. Scott was well known here in Parliament Hill, where he served as a dedicated staff member to several members of Parliament. Sadly, Scott's family said goodbye to him in July. He leaves behind his wife and 2 young children. Scott passed away from myocarditis. Before he died, Scott told his sister that he wanted his story to be told. He wanted people to know what he had experienced and what he and his family had gone through. Scott is no longer here to tell that story, so his sister Crystal will honor her brother's request and tell it for him. That is what these hearings are about, giving a voice to people who have asked to be heard, including those who are no longer able to speak for themselves. And they deserve to be treated with dignity, respect, and compassion. One issue we want to intend to examine closely is Canada's Vaccine Injury Support Program. The program was created to provide financial support to people who experienced a serious and permanent injury following vaccination. On paper, that sounds straightforward, but what we've heard from applicants is anything but straightforward. We have heard stories about people waiting months, and in some cases for years, for answers. People being asked repeatedly to submit medical information, people being asked to resend documents they say they already provided, people being told that information or files could not be located, people struggling to determine the status of their claims, and people who say they simply cannot get meaningful answers about what is happening with their case. For someone already dealing with a serious health issue, navigating a complicated bureaucracy should not become another burden they have to carry. Federal figures show that among the thousands of adverse events that have been reported, only a small number of people have ultimately received compensation through the Vaccine Injury Support Program. That raises legitimate questions. Why does the process take so long? Why are applicants having so much difficulty accessing the program? And why are people being asked repeatedly for this information? Why are we hearing allegations of missing documents and lost files? And perhaps most importantly, is the program actually delivering the timely support that vaccine-injured Canadians were promised? These are reasonable questions, and Canadians deserve reasonable answers. This should not be controversial. You can believe that vaccines played an important role during the pandemic and still believe that people who experienced serious adverse events deserve help. You can support vaccination, and you can still demand accountability from the program established specifically to compensate those who were seriously injured. These positions are not contradictory. They are what compassion, responsibility, public policy should look like. The purpose of these hearings is not to tell witnesses what happened to them, it's to allow them to tell us. For too long, many of these Canadians believe their experiences have been dismissed, minimalized, or simply ignored. Vaccine-injured Canadians have told us they feel abandoned. Our job is to listen. And that's exactly what we intend to do. When these hearings begin in September, Canadians will hear directly from vaccine-injured individuals. They will also hear from some individuals who will provide some important context to help us better understand what these Canadians have experienced. Canadians will hear about the Vaccine Injury Support Program, the experience of people that have attempted to navigate it. More than 1,000 Canadians have already raised their hands and said, "I want my story heard." We may only have time to hear 50 of them during these hearings, but every one of those 1,000 voices matter. Their experience matters, their families matter, and their stories matter. Canadians should never be afraid to tell their stories, and their government should never be afraid to listen. If you or someone you know has a story, speak up, contact your MP, ask them to participate in the Allison Inquiry September 8th to 11th in Ottawa. Watch it, share it, encourage others to listen. Their stories matter, their lives matter, and they deserve to be heard. Now I want to turn it over to Miriam, who is one of our volunteers. Her day job is a lawyer, and she'll be helping our French-speaking witnesses who are COVID-19 vaccine injured from Quebec, as we will be broadcasting the full inquiry with French translation. Thank you. Over to Miriam.
Thank you, Dean. Bonjour à tous. Mon nom est Miriam Brunier. J'agis comme avocate bénévole pour l'enquête Allison. Je représente les blessés vaccinaux du Québec qui témoigneront. Aujourd'hui, je m'adresse à tous les francophones du Canada, y compris les Québécois, pour vous dire que cette enquête est aussi la vôtre. Elle est ouverte à tous les Canadiens dans les 2 langues officielles et votre voix y a toute sa place. J'aimerais vous transmettre mon message à travers une lettre que j'ai écrite à ma fille. Elle a 8 ans. Nous faisons du karaté ensemble. Au karaté, nous remercions notre adversaire de nous rendre meilleurs. Ma fille est mon inspiration à devenir meilleure. Ma fille. On m'a fait l'honneur de me permettre de communiquer un message important lors d'une conférence de presse au sujet de l'enquête Allison. J'ai pensé à toi pour transmettre ce que je veux dire, parce que tu me rends meilleure chaque jour, comme au karaté. Qu'est-ce que l'enquête Allison? C'est une enquête non partisane qui vise à écouter les personnes qui ont subi des blessures vaccinales après avoir reçu des vaccins contre la COVID. En 2020, une crise sanitaire a été déclarée partout dans le monde. Pour en sortir, les gouvernements ont affirmé que nous avions besoin de vaccins. Ces vaccins ont été développés très rapidement. Les gouvernements ont encouragé les gens à se faire vacciner en disant que les vaccins étaient sûrs et efficaces. Certaines personnes qui craignaient le virus ont fait confiance et se sont fait vacciner dans l'espoir de se protéger elles-mêmes et de protéger leurs proches. D'autres l'ont pris afin de pouvoir continuer leurs activités, préserver leur santé mentale et retrouver une certaine vie normale, que ce soit pour voyager, pratiquer des sports, aller au restaurant ou au cinéma. D'autres encore l'ont fait parce qu'elles risquaient de perdre leur emploi et de ne plus pouvoir subvenir aux besoins de leur famille. D'autres ont dû se faire vacciner pour pouvoir visiter leurs proches hospitalisés ou recevoir des traitements médicaux. Le vaccin a blessé certaines personnes de façon temporaire ou permanente. Plusieurs demeurent avec des séquelles qui les empêchent de travailler, de jouer avec leurs enfants, d'aller à l'école. Elles vivent avec beaucoup de douleurs. Non seulement des douleurs physiques, mais aussi des douleurs psychologiques, des regrets, de la colère, de la peine, de la solitude, un sentiment de trahison, un sentiment d'abandon. Les vaccins étaient disponibles partout et gratuits. Maintenant, les soins sont difficiles à obtenir pour les blessés vaccinaux. Ces personnes ont besoin d'écoute, de compassion, de reconnaissance, de sentir qu'elles ne sont pas seules. L'enquête Allison permet de leur offrir cela. Reconnaître le problème, c'est le premier pas pour trouver la solution. Les personnes blessées par les vaccins ont fait ce qu'on leur a demandé. C'est la moindre des choses d'être présent pour les écouter. Dans la vie, rien n'est figé. Tout peut changer dès que l'on se met en mouvement, dès que l'on comprend qu'on a de l'impact sur la réalité. Comme tu le sais, au karaté, on apprend la maîtrise de notre propre puissance. On l'apprivoise et on l'utilise pour devenir meilleur. C'est vrai au karaté comme dans la vie. Ma fille, tu es mon inspiration à toujours devenir meilleure, à être cohérente entre mes valeurs et mes actes. J'ai une occasion de participer à quelque chose de grandiose, de plus grand que moi, d'y mettre ma couleur, de le façonner par mon implication et mes actions, de co-créer avec des personnes d'une qualité humaine rare. J'ai une occasion d'entrer en connexion avec mes semblables et de leur offrir un réconfort par ma seule présence, de sentir que ce que j'accomplis fait sens, de participer à la beauté de la solidarité humaine à travers ces drames. Ma présence et mes actions me font grandir. Ils me font devenir meilleur. Ce que je dis et ce que je fais est enregistré. Un jour, tu pourras suivre mes pas et voir ce que j'ai accompli. J'espère alors être une inspiration pour toi à devenir meilleur, à suivre la voie de l'amour de toi-même, de l'amour de l'humain. Signé, Maman. Vous avez tous, dans votre vie, quelqu'un qui vous inspire à devenir meilleur. Comme au karaté, nous devenons meilleurs lorsque nous acceptons de voir et de reconnaître même ce qui est difficile. Cette enquête est une occasion formidable de devenir meilleur, de faire preuve de courage, de faire preuve de force, de solidarité, de compassion, de résilience. Aux blessés vaccinaux, je vous invite à faire preuve de courage, de force et de résilience en vous inscrivant pour témoigner ou pour faire en sorte que votre histoire fasse partie de la preuve. Et je remercie ceux qui l'ont déjà fait. Aux députés et sénateurs, je vous invite à faire preuve de courage, de force, de solidarité et de compassion en siégeant aux audiences afin d'entendre les Canadiens que vous représentez et de rebâtir la confiance qui s'est perdue durant cette crise. Et je remercie ceux qui ont déjà accepté de venir. Au public, je vous invite à faire preuve de solidarité, de compassion et de résilience en faisant connaître cette enquête, en y contribuant par vos dons, en contactant vos députés pour qu'ils y participent, en la suivant lorsqu'elle sera diffusée en direct du 8 au 11 septembre prochain avec traduction simultanée en français. Vous êtes plus puissants que vous le pensez. Vous avez la puissance de devenir meilleur, d'être les modèles que vous souhaitez être pour vos enfants et les générations à venir, de vous inscrire dans l'histoire et de léguer cet héritage. Merci, Dean, Shawn et Teresa, de me permettre de devenir meilleur. Maintenant, c'est pour nous tous le temps d'être meilleurs. Merci.
My name is Dr. Charles Hoffe. I'm a family doctor from southern British Columbia, where I've worked since 1993. I serve mostly the Nlakatba First Nations people. When the vaccine rollout began, I tried to alert my colleagues in the area to serious safety signals and was reprimanded by the authorities and told that I was not allowed to say anything negative about the vaccines. And so when I started to see very serious side effects in my own patients, within 3 months of the onset of the vaccine rollout, I had one patient who died suddenly after his shot. I had 3 people who were clearly going to be permanently disabled and a number of others who were seriously injured. So I sent an open letter to the British Columbia Public Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, to inform her of these safety signals. Her response was to refer this to her top vaccine safety specialist, Dr. Monica Naus, who assured me without any investigation of any of my patients that these were all coincidences. So I said, I said to her, I've been family doctor to these people for 28 years. I know them very well, and there is no other medical explanation for these terrible, disabling symptoms that they have. She insisted that they were all coincidences and told me to just submit vaccine injury reports. So I started submitting the reports, and ultimately I submitted 14 in total, and when every single one was denied as a coincidence by public health, I gave up. To this day, I have 36 vaccine-injured patients. This is just the COVID vaccines I'm talking about in my practice, and I have a small one-man practice of approximately 1,100 people. So the second response of the authorities to me trying to alert them about what was happening to my own patients was to send a warning letter. The College of Physicians and Surgeons sent a warning letter to every registered doctor, warning them that if they spoke misinformation about COVID or the COVID vaccines, that they would be investigated and, if necessary, disciplined. In other words, this was effectively a gag order to the entire medical community. These shots are safe and effective. Don't say anything to the contrary. You will be putting people at risk. So ultimately, I was charged with spreading misinformation. And to cut a long story short, after they eventually dropped those charges, shortly before my trial, because I had a brilliant lawyer and 8 world-class expert witnesses to defend me, the only reason that the college could give me for why they dropped the charges is that this process has already fulfilled its purpose of acting as a deterrent to other doctors who may wish to spread misinformation. So this gag order, this warning to doctors to not spread what they called misinformation, effectively created an illusion of consensus. Because the doctors were too afraid to speak up, all the doctors thought that there were very few doctors out there trying to raise the alarm of what was happening, because it was clearly devastating. And I pointed out in my letter to Dr. Bonnie Henry that at that point, which was 15 months into the pandemic, we had not had one single person in our town needing any health care for COVID at all. And as soon as the vaccine rollout started, then the real problem, the real casualties emerged. And I pointed out to her that it was clear to me that the COVID injections were more dangerous than COVID. So, of course, the response of the authorities is, well, yes, it's unfortunate if a few people get hurt, but the vaccines are saving millions of lives. They are keeping people safe. So one needs to keep in mind that in the first year of the pandemic, there was absolutely no increase in the number of people dying in Canada. If we look at all-cause mortality in the first year of the pandemic, it was no different than what we would expect. The increase in all-cause mortality started after the vaccine rollout. In the United States, they have now had approximately 1 million excess, these are non-COVID excess deaths since the vaccine rollout. So this idea that the vaccines have saved millions of lives is absurd. The number of people dying is higher than ever. The open VAERS, so as I mentioned, vaccine injury reporting in Canada appeared to be censored, as I discovered, when literally of the 14 reports that I submitted, 100% rejection from public health. So we have to look to other nations. Since Canada had a censored vaccine injury reporting system, so the open VAERS in the United States records 39,000 people who died unexpectedly within 28 days of their COVID shot. 39,000. and 72,000 who were permanently disabled within 28 days of their COVID shot. And they continue to tell us that this is safe and effective. There seems to be no ceiling on how many casualties there need to be before they shut this down. So I am part of this Allison Inquiry, advocating for the safety of my own patients and for all Canadians. Thank you.
My name's Shawn Buckley, and I'm a lawyer volunteering with the Allison Inquiry, and I've been involved in interviewing people that have been shortlisted. So we have had over 1,000 applications. We don't know how many applications we'll have by the time the inquiry starts. We're still inviting people to apply. Clearly, your chances of being selected is diminishing as we're filling slots, but we want your written story to be recorded. We want you to at least be able to tell your story in writing. And we understand it's been communicated to us that some people are afraid to apply. Some people are traumatized by the thought of applying. I'll get into that in a moment. And we've had some people that have applied and we actually wanted to call as witnesses, but they're not willing to testify because they're afraid that they'll be alienated by family members. Some have communicated they're afraid that they'll lose benefits. So there's a real fear out there. But I want to share with you something special that has been happening. We don't have the funds to pay for these witnesses to attend. So we're having to ask them, can you make your way to Ottawa? And we're actually surprised because, we're interviewing these people, we're seeing their written stories. Most of them have been absolutely devastated because they're disabled, they can't work, their finances are in absolute ruins, but they're finding a way. And there's one of them named Michael who lives in a care facility because he's in a wheelchair. He's largely paralyzed, has some ability to limited mobility in his arms so he can use a wheelchair joystick. And he actually crowdsourced, and he's getting a friend to fly out from Victoria. He lives in Ontario, and he's chartered a bus that is wheelchair friendly. And he sent us an email saying, if anyone else in a wheelchair needs a ride, we'll give them a ride. There was another witness that actually is kind of taking up that offer. We weren't sure if this witness would be able to attend. The witness said, I'm able to take a train, with my support person to Ottawa, but I can't find transportation from the train station because I not only need a wheelchair accessible vehicle, but one that can take a tall IV pole also. It actually took that person a couple of weeks, and then Michael is going to be picking that person up in his bus from the hotel to the inquiry. And we're getting quite touched. Another witness said, well, you've got to be flexible on which day I testify because I have to schedule dialysis in Ottawa. And so you have to work around my dialysis because this person has lost a kidney and is waiting for a kidney transplant. We've been absolutely touched by how much these people want to help each other, by how determined they are to show up. And this determination is because they have not been heard. When I'm interviewing these people, I ask them, every single one of them, a question that they don't expect. I ask, what is the most difficult part of this experience that you've had? And I'm actually expecting them to say, well, it's becoming a quadriplegic. It's the chronic pain. It's the fact that I'm on dialysis 6 days a week and I'm, 33. Even if I get a transplant, that's only going to last 10 years. I know I'm facing dialysis again. I'm expecting that, or the economic turmoil or the family turmoil. But most of them don't talk about that. When I ask them what the most difficult part is, most of them say the most difficult part has been dealing with the medical system. They almost all of them use the term gaslit. Basically, what they have is they're having these symptoms that is causing enormous suffering, disability, loss of function, and they're basically being told that it's in their head or, it's something else that it's not. And they're actually being treated like modern-day lepers. Some of them, like the doctors right out of the gate, this is vaccine injury. Everyone agrees it's vaccine injury, but they can't get specialists to help them because the doctor will refer to the specialist, and because the diagnosis is vaccine injury, it's almost like there's a fear. It's almost like they're untouchable. There's this unspeakable thing. We cannot say vaccine injury. We cannot treat vaccine injury. This has become the most difficult experience in their lives, is dealing with the medical system and then also dealing with the vaccine injury support program. And let me just share with you kind of some of the unfairness of this program, which was actually we've learned by all of these thousands of stories coming to us, because we ask in our questionnaire detailed questions about the vaccine injury program, and we interview these people. And so basically, you start with a two-part process, which is just a form with two parts. So you fill in this form where you basically tell your story, and you really only tell it in a couple of paragraphs. Now, you don't know what the criteria is, because the vaccine injury program doesn't say, here are the criteria for us to determine what a vaccine injury is. And then you get your doctor, or a doctor, if a doctor is willing, to fill in Form 2. Many of them have not been able to apply because they can't get a doctor willing to sign the form because of this unwillingness to participate in anything connected to vaccine injury. Well, then they get your medical records, and internally they put together your file. It's analyzed, or a report is done that you never see, and then a panel of 3 meet and decide things. You've never been interviewed. So can you imagine, one lady I was speaking to, I think English is her second language. She's largely quadriplegic, has some motion in her arms, chronic pain. I'm looking at her form. It's like 2 paragraphs. Her life depends on this. She's hoping to get compensation for pain and suffering. She's hoping to get cost of living expenses. She's hoping to get cost of care expenses. These are people that are in absolute financial crisis. They're depending on this program. They're never interviewed. So if you don't tell your story right, you're not a doctor, you don't know what the criteria is, you don't know what's important to them, and they never get back to you and say, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? And then a decision is made by 3 unnamed people. You're told, it's a family doctor and a neurologist and a physiotherapist. But you don't know who they are. You don't know if there's any bias. You don't know if they're actually qualified to analyze your file. And you get, maybe a page and a half of reasons. So it's a really frustrating process. And these people that are already traumatized by the medical system report that they're being traumatized again. So this Allison Inquiry, where the whole purpose of this is just to listen to their stories, we've come to understand this is so much more important than we initially felt. We knew that these people weren't being heard. We knew that we have to have a conversation about this. That's what we're hoping will happen with the Allison Inquiry. But we didn't understand how deeply it's needed by these vaccine-injured persons who are literally desperate and, crowd fundraising to get wheelchair-accessible buses to get here. So we feel that we're all volunteers. We all feel very honored to be able to assist these people, and we truly are inviting you to participate by watching. These people are desperate to share their stories with you, and we invite you to participate. We guarantee it will change your lives, as it's changing ours, listening to their stories.
I am ready for questions.
Hi, MP Allison, Rachel Aiello, CTV News. So I've read through the details and the parameters of this inquiry, and my understanding is there's really no teeth to it. At most, you can maybe suggest questions to Parliament. I'm wondering, are you not then just asking these injured Canadians to re-traumatize themselves without any real result or accountability? Like, what are you intending to get out of this initiative?
Sure. First, thanks for coming. We appreciate having CTV in the room. I think one of the biggest challenges right now is that people have not felt they have permission to actually talk about this. So how do you move forward if no one could talk about it? Dr. Hoffe talked a bit about how people show up and doctors are afraid to actually, diagnose or find help. So we realized by raising awareness, we're hoping to put pressure on the government through the fact that they realize they're already relooking at the VIS program. Something else is going to come out. We also understood that there was like 2/3 of that money in the original program went to overhead. So we hope they'll listen to what the stories and the frustrations and concerns are. So at the end of the day, they'll get a chance to have a better program. And once again, I think, for a lot of these individuals, as Shawn has mentioned, there's a lot of trauma. And so at the end of the day, we want the healing to start by people just feeling like they're being heard. And as I said, it's a very narrow focus, as you mentioned, because I don't have the resources of government. But by all means, I think it's a great start. And we really hope that this will start the healing process and the government will take notice and they'll do a better job with the next iteration of the program.
And so then I would like you to respond to the criticism that we've seen that this is an initiative that you were leading for political motivations, drumming up anti-vaccine sentiment, instead of actually trying to meaningfully have these people's voices heard and make change. What would you say to that?
Sure. I'd say, my job as a member of parliament was to listen to people and help them access programs. So I do it in my office. As a matter of fact, every MP doing their job, and I believe every MP does their job, all 343 across this country, they do their job every day. The challenge is, I'll say once again, is that when you're looking at things like this, you end up realizing that people don't feel comfortable in having these conversations. And so, I look at that. I look at this as an opportunity, as an extension of my job, and to be able to do this publicly because I'm already doing this privately. And as I said, when you talk to some of these vaccine-injured people, what you'll find out is that there's a huge reluctance to have any conversations or any meaningful conversation. Really, what we hope they'll do is they'll have permission. We want to give them permission to speak publicly about these things. And so I don't look at it as that. We're not trying to find facts to beat up the government. It's open to everybody. We invited all parties to sit in and listen to this. And so, my response to that is I believe this is an extension of my job. And MPs do this in a variety of ways all the time, all across their ridings. We're trying to do it more publicly because the input I've received over the last 3 or 4 years from people across the country, voicemails, texts, emails, all those things were saying no one's had a conversation. We don't know what's going on and we need help. So we are trying to raise awareness. And the government admits themselves at the end of the day. They started the program, the VIS program, because they realized people were injured, right? And government's own health records have some 60,000 people are injured, 11,000 serious. 3,500 applied to the program, 3,000 got accepted, only 252 received any types of compensation. That is 0.4%. And so as we look at these numbers and we hear the stories of docs sort of saying, we're reluctant to say anything, we feel those numbers could be much higher. But let's just use the government numbers for now. That's what we'll use, the Health Canada numbers. We realize that there's a very, very small fraction of the money that was promised or used to help these people is actually getting to them. And so that's really what we want to do is raise awareness. And we hope the government will, as they look at this new program, will be able to add more funds, make the process simpler. If they're listening to what it really is quite amazing, the frustration level of individuals trying to get through the program. Lost forms. I mentioned a highlight, the top 3 or 4 of those things, and really we just want people to be able to try and get access to the funds.
My colleagues will indulge me. I just had a quick follow-up. You're saying you want it to be nonpartisan, and you've made the appeal for all members of Parliament to come and listen. Have you heard confirmation from any member of Parliament that's not a Conservative?
No, not at this point in time, but we're still reaching out. We'll be sending out another invite this week as I learn more of the individuals that will be coming to testify. I know already there's some from Liberal ridings. I'll be personally reaching out to those members to say, you have a constituent that's coming to town. If you could take the time, that would be great. So that'll be the courtesy that I offer them as well. Thank you.
Cameron Ryan from CPAC. And my question is a little similar to my colleagues here. You said in your opening statement Canadians deserve answers on these questions around the vaccine and around the support program for the vaccine injured, but your inquiry also says it will not make any findings of fact or reach any conclusions. So where are the answers going to come from that you're looking for?
Yeah, no, great question. Once again, there's been no conversation around this topic at all for the last 3 or 4 years. What we are hoping to do is we raise this issue, just like I would raise the issue if I was doing a town hall back in my riding in Niagara West. as people listen to this inquiry, we're hoping, the government right now is right in between programs. They're looking at what they can do differently from before. We hope that there'll be people listening and they'll be able to have an opportunity to do that. By all means, I'm always happy to make recommendations, send something into committee, et cetera, et cetera. Our whole point of this was that we were not looking at anything other than listening to people, hearing their stories, and trying to make sure that people could get access to these programs.
And another question. Will witnesses be under oath when they testify at the Allison Inquiry?
Yes, they will. Yeah.
Is there any threat, what's the penalty if they're found to be not telling the truth? Of course, this isn't like a government or judicial
Sure.
inquiry, so is there...
Probably the same penalty that happens in regular committees right now. There's no penalty. I mean, we're talking to people. We're having doctors verify this information, and we're trying to take all precautions to make sure that people that show up are what they say they are. So.
Ryan Holty, Toronto Star. Is this inquiry an inquiry into the vaccine injury program? Is it an inquiry into the safety of the COVID vaccines? Is it an inquiry into the science behind COVID-19? Like, what are you trying to focus on in this inquiry?
Yeah. Toronto Star, thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. No, I think a couple of things. We said before, we don't have the time, the money, the capacity to look at the scientific issue. I would say my mandate as a member of Parliament is to listen to individuals and to help advocate on behalf of programs. It is nothing more than that. We're going to share some of the situations why people are reluctant to actually look at those kinds of things, but we are hoping the government is taking notice of what is going on and some of the frustrations that people have trying to navigate the systems.
Sorry, so is it about the program? Is it about the safety of vaccines? Is it about COVID?
It is about listening to Canadians, and it's about people trying to get access to programs.
And can you talk a little bit about you've called this an inquiry, but inquiries definitely have a format. They have a commissioner, they have opposing counsel, they have legal budgets. I know you said you don't have any of those things. So what is the format of this going to look like? Is this going to be just 50 people getting up and telling their stories?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, this would be very similar to what we do in our writings all the time. We talk to people every single day about a variety of issues. So what we will do is we'll be talking to individuals throughout the course of that, and we will bring in some people from time to time to give some context to, maybe go through government numbers and try to explain to us what they mean and what they are. But no, you're absolutely correct. We're not trying to find any kind of finding. We found that one of the greatest things, and I know Shawn alluded to this, people are having such a hard time not being able to feel like they can actually have a conversation. So there's a lot of mental anguish around that people feel like they've been gaslit and all those other kinds of things. I think this starts a healing process to say, listen, we are listening. We encourage MPs to come and hear their stories, and maybe that can begin the healing process for some of these individuals.
And if my colleague will indulge me, do you have support from other Conservative MPs for holding this inquiry? Do you have support from the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre, for holding this inquiry?
No, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I know that Pierre, when Pierre's out on the road, he's told me as himself that individuals have come up to him. And as you know, Pierre, if he's at an event, he'll stay for an hour or two until every person comes through. I think one of the greatest litmus tests of an MP is when you're out in the riding and hearing what people have to say. So absolutely, he's aware of that because he's aware that people have been injured because they come and talk to him. As far as other Conservatives, absolutely. I mean, as Conservatives, we all have a number of initiatives that we're involved in and areas of responsibility. There'll be definitely some Conservatives that'll be coming to hear some of the stories. And as we get closer to that date, we anticipate there'll be a lot more that will be there to be able to hear. And once again, we'll open this to everybody. Once again, the NDP, the Bloc, and the Liberals as well. We'd love to have them there.
Perfect. I have a question as well. I'm Rachel Haynes. I'm with CTV.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would like to
Thank you.
Yeah. Lots of people here today. We've seen Dr. Fauci in the United States be called to testify in front of Congress. Do you have any plans to invite Dr. Theresa Tam, who led some of these vaccine initiatives when she was the Chief Public Health Officer at this time?
Yeah, no, there's no plans for that. And once again, I think it was pointed out, we don't have the ability to compel witnesses. And so we really wanted to keep this a narrow focus, listening to people's stories, and hopefully being able to raise the alarm and how difficult the program has been to access. Global News did a great article on a 4-part series last year, which was something that the Health Committee was thinking about for a period of time. So we know there's interest there, and I think that at the end of the day, we'd love to see an opportunity for the government to do better in the second round of what they do.
And we know that you were against COVID vaccines back in 2020.
I supported choice.
Choice. Okay,
Absolutely.
agreed. Fair point. And I guess I'm wondering if you're going to be hearing from experts who believe in the safety of the COVID-19 vaccine, who may have a different perspective from you.
Yeah, no, we're basically want to hear from constituents across the country and what they're doing and what the challenge they've had to access these programs to try and make it better.
And I noticed on the website you're canvassing donations as well. Where are the funds from those donations going to? I believe that there was a nonprofit set up that kind of overseeing this inquiry, but I would like to know more specifically where those donations would actually be going.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah, thanks.
So the basically it's just the cost. So everyone is a volunteer except for web contractors and the like for setting up the infrastructure. We're paying some travel for witnesses, but we were actually hoping we'd have enough to pay for all. So it's all just, so there's no salaries other than, web people and graphic people and the like. So, I'm a volunteer, my wife Teresa's a volunteer, the people vetting the witnesses are volunteer, doctors that are helping to vet witnesses. As it turns out, most witnesses will be calling their own doctors are agreeing that it's vaccine injury, but there's been some where we've had a panel of doctors look at it and see if it's a realistic thing, because we came to realize there's that difficulty. So, yeah, and right, so that's basically it is. So we set up a nonprofit so that we could collect funds and have a legal vehicle to pay for this. So.
Thank you. I might just ask one more question as well. It's just a bit more of a follow-up on my colleagues' questions about what the actual focus is. I mean, in my questions to you just now, you talked about the vaccine injury program itself. My gathering from Dr. Hoffe was about some of the safety of the vaccine. So I'm just really wondering, what is the actual focus of this, and if it is just about the vaccine injury program, which we have seen some criticism of, or if it is actually just to listen about the safety of vaccines and people's opinions on vaccines.
Yeah, no, I think what Dr. Hoffe was trying to illustrate is the difficulty around doctors being able to identify these things because of fear of what they have to deal with. What we are doing, what I set up to do, is to listen and to then advocate on behalf of these individuals for the vaccine injury program. Once again, good work from Global News last year. Some of these things may never have come forward. And so I think that if we could do that, I think that would be helpful. People have a chance to, talk about what they've struggled with, and they feel like they've been alone. The word that keeps coming up is people feel like they've been abandoned. And so if we could deal with that, and then the next part would be if the government's listening, we'd love definitely for them to do a better job, maybe create more money, streamline the process. There's a number of different things. The government will figure that out, and maybe that's why they brought it back in-house. But while they're still trying to decide what that program is going to look like, I think there's a fantastic opportunity to give them feedback on that as well.
On that then,
We don't have any more time after this question. This is
understood.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Just one
Someone
more
else.
after this. He said no more questions.
Oh, okay, good, yeah.
Thanks. So if you want the government to listen to what is being said, are you not concerned that having a platform for Canadians who have legitimate vaccine injuries be shared with doctors who believe that their patients or wanted their patients to be given ivermectin is not entirely delegitimizing the process, and therefore having the government essentially tune this whole thing out?
Well, like I said, we're going to talk to individuals, and those individuals are going to share their stories. And as I said, the government admits themselves that people have been vaccine injured. They set up a program called VISP, and that program has not worked very well. So we want to give them input on that so the next program can be better. Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it.
No, anyways, sorry, Jordan. Are you going to be publishing any of your conversations or your
Yeah,
findings?
we'll publish stuff to the website. Yeah, perfect. Thanks very much for coming, guys. Appreciate it.